According to one study, about 1 in 10,000 people who attempts to break into the professional speaking business actually breaks in and earns $100,000 or more in a year. It's almost like professional acting, singing, or dancing, or being a comic. The number of people, or the percentage of people who earn $100,000 a year or more is very, very small. And so why is that? That's what I wanted to address in this, because for the last 25 years of running the Bill Gove Speech Workshop, training professional speakers around the world, that's the number one question people ask. And it really is a fair question. Why do so many people fail at this business? I mean, I've literally seen presidents, no exaggeration, of billion-dollar companies fail to make it in the professional speaking business. I've seen Harvard professors, Stanford professors, Yale, MIT. We've had all these people in the speech workshop that have come through and learned skills, but still failed to succeed at the $100,000 a year level or more as a professional speaker. Again, it's the same as acting. If you go to Los Angeles and you ask someone who wants to be a professional actor, what percentage of professional actors in LA make $100,000 a year or more? It's basically, they say no one. You know, of course, you've got people like Tom Cruise and Mel Gibson and, Meryl Streep and big stars that make millions. But that's a very, very small group of people. Most people are washing cars and waiting tables. And effectively, it's the same thing in professional speaking. So why is that? Why is it 1 out of 10,000 ever makes it, when there's things, organizations like the National Speakers Association and all kinds of different programs and, teachers and coaches and all the rest of it? Well, there are a myriad of reasons, frankly. I've been doing this for 25 years. I've had a great career and all the rest of it. But one of the reasons I got into 6 figures relatively quickly and 7 figures very quickly compared to other speakers is because I had Bill Gove. I had a mentor guiding me. He walked me step by step into the business. He introduced me to the biggest speakers in the business. I connected with them. They mentored me. I had that giant advantage. And that's one of the things that they don't talk about at speakers meetings that I've learned over the years, which kind of bugs me, because I've always talked about the fact that without Bill Gove, I'd still be teaching tennis lessons in Florida, and that's, people say, well, you're being humble. Well, it's probably pretty close to true. I certainly wouldn't have had the career I've had in professional speaking, earning, millions of dollars as a professional speaker over the years, and enjoying all the rest of it as well, book signings and book sales and TV interviews and the rest of the things that go with it. I had mentorship. I had someone usher me into the business. I was Bill Gove's apprentice for the last 5 years of his life. And I've always talked about that because I know so many people feel so badly about failing in this business. And effectively, the truth is, most of the time that I've seen it, it's not really their fault. So if you failed as a speaker, or you've been trying to break into this business for 5, 10, 15, 20 years, which happens all the time, don't feel so bad. It's probably not your fault. It might be. If you didn't work at it, it might be. But I've seen a lot of people that were pretty decent speakers fail over and over and over at National Speakers Association. I mean, literally hundreds and hundreds of people that started out in 1997, 98, 99 like I did, that are still struggling. They still haven't made their first $100,000 a year in this business. And it's really sad, but there are a lot of factors that go into it. And I want to talk about some of those things. The number one thing I want to talk about in this particular video is the idea of mentorship. Not only mentorship in speaking skills, marketing skills, sales skills, and all the skills that go along with professional speaking. That's one thing. But also mentorship in terms of ushering people into the business by introducing them to top people, by sharing trade secrets with them that, the top 100 speakers in the United States and around the world, maybe another 100 around the entire world, know that no one else really knows because they're so engrossed in the business or they've been doing it for so long. That's one of those. There's so much more that just mentorship of the skills and all the rest of it. It's when you have someone who's connected in this business, introducing you to the industry. That's what I had with Bill Gove. I mean, that's the bottom line. I mean, I'd love to sit here and say, well, it was just my talent, but that's not true at all. You know, a lot of the more talented speakers than me, but percentage-wise, not many non-celebrity speakers have made the same amount of money, just because a lot of it was because, yeah, I worked hard like a lot of people, but I also had the connections. And it's the same thing in Hollywood, and that's kind of what I want to talk about. There's lots of reasons people fail, but this is one of the key reasons, and this one bugs me the most, I think, because speakers that have these advantages, most of the time I've seen in 25 years, do not talk about it. They take credit for their success, and most of them, like me, had an edge. They had a huge advantage. They had someone they were connected to, that was majorly connected in the business. And I could tell you name after name after name and not stop for 15 minutes, literally, after 25 years. And hardly any of these people talk about it. Sometimes I'll mention, oh, so-and-so is a mentor, but very rarely do they do it. I don't know why, for whatever reason. I don't know. Doesn't matter. But in Hollywood, it's the exact same thing, and they never talk about it either. And I'll just rattle off a few names. I'm not an actor, but I work out in Los Angeles like most speakers do, you know, on a regular basis. It's a big market for speakers. And, of course, the West Coast, Las Vegas is the biggest market probably. And so I run into actors, and I've been to the Oscars a few times, and I know some people in that world. I'm not in that world, but I know some people in there. And if you look at people like Jennifer Aniston, you say, well, it's just because she's a great actor. Both of Jennifer Aniston's parents were full-fledged Hollywood people when she was born. You don't think that made a difference with her getting the role on Friends? I'm not saying she's not talented. I'm a big Jennifer Aniston fan. Okay, if you've ever heard me speak, you know I've got a thing for Jennifer Aniston anyway. Okay, but that aside, you don't think that made a difference? How about Drew Barrymore? Who was her grandfather? Lionel Barrymore, Mr. Potter in the famous Jimmy Stewart movie. You know, I mean, It's a Wonderful Life. And as well as other people, her family is entrenched in Hollywood. Drew Barrymore, in my opinion, she has very limited talent, and maybe other people would disagree. Doesn't really matter. She's fine. She's got a talk show. She's in the media all the time. Her family is legendary in Hollywood. You don't think that made a difference? How about Kate Hudson? Let's see. Bill Hudson was their father, the Hudson brothers, if you're old enough to remember. Big time name, very famous around the world in show business. And then of course, Goldie Hawn from Laugh-In, if you're old enough like me to remember Laugh-In. Oh, and by the way, the guy that raised her was not Bill Hudson. That was Kurt Russell, who's been in movies since he was about 7 years old. Major movie star. You don't think their connections made a difference for Kate Hudson? I'm not saying she's not a good actress. She's fine. I know way better actresses that can't pay your phone bill. That literally I've seen on Broadway, I've seen all over, I've seen on the West End of London, you know, the theater district, and in different places. They're very good actresses that Drew Barrymore and Jennifer Aniston and Kate Hudson are not even in their league. But they didn't have those world-class connections, those Hollywood connections. You notice how I've seen Drew Barrymore, I've seen Jennifer Aniston, of course, like most people, in interviews. You know, I've never heard any of them talk about their connections with their family. Nepotism. The list goes on. And Gwyneth Paltrow. Right? Her mother's Blythe Danner. Okay? Her father is Bruce Paltrow. They're legends in Hollywood. They know everyone. And I could go on and on with this list, okay, of nepotism. And people say, well, it's not really fair because it's nepotism. Okay, well, yeah, the world's not fair. Life is not fair. You know, that's welcome to the world. That's the way it works, right? Here's my point. Do you think it made a difference that they were so connected by the time they were born that when they decided to become actors, that those connections didn't make a difference? Come on. You know, we're not naive people. This is what makes a difference. Okay, so I could go on and on about Hollywood, even though that's not even my business. I mean, the stories of people making it because of the introductions they got, the connections they have, their family, the legends, the connections. You know, it goes on and on. Speaking business is no different. They never talk about it. I haven't, 25 years going to meetings at National Speaker Association, I've hardly ever heard anyone talk about it. Matter of fact, when I bring up Bill Gove, I've literally had people backstage say, Steve, you ought to kind of push Bill aside. Now, Bill's been gone for 20 years or whatever, how much time it was at the time that happened, you know, when he had passed away. You know, you should let Bill go now and fly on your own. I'm flying on my own. What I'm doing is giving credit to the person that gave me the connections and all the stuff that goes with that to break into 7 figures in the first 5 years of my career, which almost never happens to a non-celebrity speaker. It'd be nice to take credit for it, but I can't really do that because I didn't do all of it. It was a lot of connections. And I won't do it because I'm not in the acting business, so I'll name names of those famous people, and I could do a lot more of them. There's a lot more that you might not even know that have famous parents, famous cousins, famous uncles, aunts, and they use that family connection. I'm not saying it's bad. I don't blame them. I would do the same thing. I don't blame Aniston or Barrymore or Gwyneth Paltrow or any of them. I do the exact same thing. I did the exact same thing with Bill Gove. So I'm not putting it down. I'm saying if you're failing, understand that underground, without knowing, a lot of the speakers that you worship, that you think are great, and I worship, but I think are great, you don't know their backstory. You don't know that they were connected to major league people who got them in the business, who ushered them in, who made connections, who knew companies that could bring them in right away, right off the bat. It's nepotism sometimes, family connections, but it's also other kinds of connections like mine with Bill Gove and other people. And I could literally rattle off 100 speakers I know that you know that they're famous, okay, that had connections like that from day one. I won't do it because I'm not putting them down. It's not a criticism. I mean, I did it, so it's not a criticism, and I'd be criticizing myself. But what I'm saying is the point of all that is that's one of the reasons people make it in this business, and all these other people fail, and they don't hear that story, and they go, what's wrong with me? You know, I'm very successful in this industry or that industry, whatever it is, and how can I not make it? Well, they don't know that people are making it. They're going, this guy doesn't seem as good as me on the platform or as knowledgeable or as much of an expert. Then why is he making or she making and I'm not? Well, you might not know that they have connections so deep it's embarrassing. And that's one of the reasons they got the opportunities they had. Okay? Again, I'm the beneficiary of this, okay? So this made my career, so I'm not putting it down. It's great. But that's one of the reasons if you're failing, if you don't have those kinds of connections, check into the backgrounds of the people you think are so great, like Tony Robbins and a bunch of all those other people, and look at their backgrounds and who they were connected to. Nothing wrong with it. It's not a criticism. It's just that's the reality. If you don't have those kinds of connections, you're on your own, baby. And I don't care how much marketing you do or knocking on doors you do. There's nothing like you're either connected or you're not. In any industry, in any business, you're either connected at the top or you're unconnected. And LinkedIn doesn't do it. I'm talking about personal connections that go back years and years, generations in some cases. Okay, so I just want to let you know that that's the reality of the speaking business. This is one of the reasons. It's not the only reason, of course. Okay, but if you can get someone to usher you into the business, that's why we have our Speaker's Apprentice program. Because Bill Gove did it for me, and I've literally brought speakers on stages with 10,000 people in the audience. That is a very dumb thing to do, frankly. It's stupid because you don't know what people are going to do. One time I had a guy freeze up and in front of about 1,000 people, and I lost the client because I did that. And that's why it's so dangerous. That's why no one will do that for you. I do it for speakers, not too many, but I do it for some speakers every year because if Bill Gove didn't do it for me, I'd still be teaching tennis lessons, you know, same thing. So anyway, I just want you to know that exists in the speaking business on a huge level, but it's never talked about. And so just know that if you're failing, don't feel bad because you likely don't know the rest of the story, as our old friend Paul Harvey used to say. You don't know the rest of the story, what's behind the scenes, you know, and there's a lot going on behind the scenes that they don't talk about. And it's too bad that they don't. But it may not be your fault that you're failing. You might need someone to connect you, or but that's just one of the reasons. And I'm going to talk about on other videos more reasons. But just know that you always have a chance to still break in. Sometimes people say, well, I'm 60 years old or I'm 70 years old. That's the best time. I think it's one of the best times to start as a speaker. You got gray hair, you got wisdom, you got knowledge, you have experience, you have tenure, you're seasoned. You know the way the world works. You're not 30. When you're 30, you don't know hardly anything. Maybe about certain subjects, but not wisdom. You don't have wisdom because you haven't lived long enough. The more gray your hair is, the more valuable you are in this business. That's why speakers like Brian Tracy, who's coming up on 80 years old, are so valuable. One of the reasons he's so valuable, not the only reason, but just one of the reasons. But older speakers are very, very valuable, and they don't go up. They get more valuable as they get older, even into their 90s. And so you always have a chance, but you got to know the way this thing works behind the scenes. It's the Wizard of Oz. It's going behind, the curtain and seeing the way this business really works. And I'm going to do a whole series of them, these videos, so you know the way it really works at the behind the curtain, and you can take action accordingly. Okay, so thanks for watching. See you next time.